I'm just conscious of the time and the fact that we still have public comment ahead of us. Did you have another question, Mr. Wood?
No, I just wondered if there were other problems then. So I guess it seems to be more. He seems to be more focused on the distributor model. So
we can. This is our only forum
Sure.
to discuss that. So we let us know. Send us an email.
Yeah, thank you.
I do want to before we move on to public comment, and I do thank the panel. I really appreciated Ms. Cargile's suggestion that perhaps the state agencies, and I'm going to reference this to Mr. Kadani in DCA, the suggestion that there may be some proactive communication on this issue of the bans to maybe calm down some of the concerns among the cities and the counties. We did hear from Mr. Cromartie that once the bill was signed, they would send out information, but it seems like we have a very critical period of time where perhaps the state could take some initiation to disseminate some calming information on the issue of the bans. So I would really appreciate if perhaps we could start what we've been talking about today, which is good communication, making sure everyone is getting the information they need, perhaps with DCA taking a lead on getting that information out to our cities and counties. Looks like we have maybe 40 more we can reach before they take action, and maybe more to follow. So thank you for that suggestion. I think that's something we could actually try to get ahead of. I think what we heard of, we heard concerns. There's clearly many, many more concerns. This is not the only hearing that will take place. We have bills moving through that will go through a hearing process as well that will be very important. I think, thank you so much for the information you shared. It seems like one of the key things we heard about was really communication and coordination as something that we must keep focused on, and that's critically important as we move to really successful implementation of this bill. The hearing focus today really was on implementation. I want to thank all three of our panels for the information they gave us on this process we are in. We're clearly not at the end of it. I want to thank the bill's authors and the committee chairs that were here as well, who are dedicated to continuing to work on this issue over the next few years that are ahead of us. So we do have an incredible opportunity, I think, in front of us to have California, take a very clear lead and be very successful in proper implementation of regulations around medical marijuana. So thank you very much. And with that, we will transition to public comment as well. Thank you. Invite the public to line up. We have what? Oh. Yes, Mr. Cooley, we would like to. Are you desiring to speak in public comment? Well, you should go first. We would like to afford you that.
While he's moving, Madam Chair, I just want to thank the chairs for putting this together today. I think it's been valuable. I think that you actually see that the concerns of the agencies and the concerns of cities and counties actually are in many ways mirrored with some of the concerns of the industry. So I think that that's nice that we're having this conversation. Obviously, this is the first of many. So I thank you for putting this together. I think it's a great first step.
Yeah. I also want to thank the committee staff, the consultants from all three committees for all of their hard work in actually making this happen and really an excellent sharing of information. So thank you very much. All right, Mr. Cooley.
Well, actually, I just
want
to thank you for an outstanding hearing, very informative, excellent panels. I note that Fiona Ma was here and she had a conference call, but I think it's outstanding that she was able to sit here and listen to the whole thing. It's been outstanding just to sit and listen and joining the four of the four amigos sitting here kind of following it. But no, a very outstanding hearing. And I do think that I had talked with Tim Cromartie about this issue of the manager's department, the attorney's department in the League of Cities. I think that there will be model types of regulations that will be available to cities. Cities have different scales, and actually how different cities of different sizes might deal with a constructive approach to regulation is an area where I think that there will probably be ideas forthcoming which can help sort of shorten the cycle on how constructive regulation is approached. So I'm hoping that will emerge in the League of Cities. And I just think it is incumbent upon us to repeal that date, which is unfortunate. It's pushing a lot of this activity. That is the all-important communication that I think for people who need access to health to this, that's the all-important communication. The news that Jerry Brown has signed a remedial bill and dealt with that issue. So outstanding hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, it's always nice to clean up our own mess, right? We did cause it, so thank you, Mr. Wood, for taking the action to correct it. Public comment. We know there's a number of speakers. We do have a limited time frame that we have this room, so I would encourage you to make your comments very brief, 30 seconds if you can, a minute at the most, and then we're going to keep moving on because I want to let as many members of the public speak as possible. Thank you.
More than happy to. First of all, good afternoon, Chair. My name is David McPherson. I am a principal at HDL Companies. We represent 160 cities and counties. Previously, before coming to HDL, I was actually part of the management team for the City of Oakland that taxed and regulated the industry and developed best practices. So things you were talking today are very critical as far as what needs to be done. Some of the things that you mentioned were training and outreach and education, and one of the things we've been doing the last 3 months is trying to provide that to the city. As you know, with that deadline has caused things. We will reach out to our members and our clients as well regarding the issue that you just brought up once the bill is signed and give them updates on what is going on. We do a legislative update so we can provide that to them as long as with the League of Cities that we're working very closely as well with CSAC as well. I just want to make one thing. As working for the City of Oakland for 5 years, it will be critical that both the state and the locals and the industry work collaborative together. That will be a key component of it. Time I've spent in Colorado, spending a lot of time with the MED there, that was the issue they made, is they did not work collaboratively with both of those areas in order to make a good regulation. So I encourage you to continue, and I working with the agencies as well to assist them as much as we can. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker. And please introduce yourself first. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Beck. I'm from Siskiyou County. I'm going to read from my notes here. I'm a little nervous, and I'll try to get through it as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say that, in my opinion, AB 266 and 21 and their addendums offer little or no protection and access for patients and mom-and-pop growers that have no interest in growing commercially. I am specifically referring to the rash of bans statewide. By allowing these bans to continue, we could create a scenario where all 58 counties decide to ban, yet this is legal in the state of California. I don't know if anybody's thought that far ahead. It's impossible, perhaps, but possible nonetheless. I do want to mention that our ban in Siskiyou County was put in place hurriedly, partially in fear of onslaught of commercial growing and also misinformation that was given to us by RCRC that January 1st was our deadline to react and not, in fact, March 1st. I also want to mention that it took a year and a half for us to put our ordinance into effect that was voted in May, and it was all undone in 2 weeks through the process of a ban. This in and of itself denies safe, affordable access as prescribed in 215 and 420. Banning would be a detriment to dispensaries as there would be no legal vendors to supply them. Banning would create an astronomical black market by sending patients to the street and making that very lucrative to be the corner dealer again. It would also potentially criminalize thousands of patients who cannot afford to purchase and are forced to grow to meet their needs. So to me, and in my opinion, this legislation represents pretty much the interests of commercial growers, the money that follows it, and not the mom and pop farmers and caregivers. So I urge you to find some way to repeal these bans and make some sense out of this whole mess. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Rich Miller from American Alliance for Medical Cannabis. I've been an activist for patients' rights for the last 24 years. I want to thank you and commend you for all your hard work as I've worked in this Capitol to try to get these bills moved forward. As we move forward, I do want you to understand the importance of taking care of these bans. I was instrumental with working with Placer County to set a placeholder card available for that county so they can implement the new MRSA laws. As we move forward, it's very important that we keep patients in mind, because I don't think we've looked at enough at the patients. As we move forward with the new regulatory package, it's my hope when you create this advisory committee that you do have a patient advocacy group as a stakeholder at the table to make sure patients' rights are being protected. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good suggestion.
Hi, I'm Heidi Grossman. I'm the Executive Director of YOLO Normal. I'm the Expansion Director for Monterey Normal. I also own and operate a compliance business here in Sacramento, and I have Sugarleaf Patient Association. The new regulations have created new victims with no considerations, protections, or immunities. The current bans have made new criminals out of several of us, and patients will die with no access. I have been raided by law enforcement 4 times. The last raid I was in Yuba County by the Net 5 team. They stole my medication, but they did not charge me with a crime. I lost a 3-year-old patient. The Net 5 team held rifles at my head, and I can't tell you what nightmares I wake up with every night, knowing that they're still out there. What I'm requesting is that you send a strong message to law enforcement to stop the raids and stop the arrests of patients. I'm also requesting that you amend the use of the word marijuana and have it be removed. If you know the history of prohibition, the government used to turn the term to discriminate against people of color. So please consider removing that and using the proper terminology with the word cannabis in your cleanup bill, because it's extremely offensive to some of us. If you need a good resource to learn the history of prohibition, you can read a book written by Jack Herer, The Emperor Wears No Clothes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
My name is Roger Morgan, founder of the Take Back America campaign. I'm concerned about what hasn't been discussed here today. Marijuana is federally illegal, as you know, I think for good reason. Nobody's talked about the harms. What we know today about marijuana, for anybody under 25 years old, it can cause permanent brain damage. It's a serious problem, in my opinion. I haven't heard anything about the other conditions of the Cole memo. There were 8 conditions. I think all 8 have been violated. The one that concerns me most is what I heard in a Senate Oversight Committee hearing with Mr. Wood and Senator McNeil, talking about 50,000 cultivation sites in California that supply 60% of the marijuana to the U.S. market for recreational use. That's unacceptable. We're destroying our youth and we're destroying our planet at the same time. I want to make you aware that I've also authored a ballot initiative calling for a complete ban for privately owned cultivation and dispensaries, but it would retain the intent of Prop 215 to make medical marijuana available for those that need it. It would also elevate the age limit from 18 to 21 for medical marijuana to get them closer to the point where it won't do brain damage. So I'd like to share that information. I'll send it to you if you promise to read it.
Thank you very much. I promise someone will read it.
Marvin Pineda with Capital Strategies Group on behalf of the United Cannabis Business Alliance. We're a trade association consisting of cultivators, manufacturers, and dispensaries out of Southern California. I want to thank legislators, also staff, for being so responsive to all of our questions. We want parity in the indoor cultivation. Last year, we were at an extremely disadvantage, and that didn't completely get fixed. So we strongly support that and address any greenhouse gas reductions along with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, I'm Lynette Davies with Crusaders for Patients' Rights, and I want to congratulate you for getting the bill forward. However, I spoke against what we have here as law for California state law at each of the hearings, and unfortunately what has come true is that we have set ourselves back into prohibition. And by having these counties and cities place bans that we're not going to have safe access for our patients. But because we had the Department of Agriculture here, but unfortunately they're gone, so I'm hoping somebody can get back with me. But there was a state law that was actually placed, California Seed Law 2470, that became effective as of 2015. And on that particular law, it says, notwithstanding any law on or after January 1st of 2015, a city, county, or district, including a charter city or county, shall not adopt or enforce an ordinance that regulates plants, crops, or seeds without the consent of the Secretary, and that was for the Department of Agriculture. So I'd like to see, since we already do have some laws to protect cultivation rights, if they are going to be honored, or are they going to be how can we work these laws that we already have to help protect patients' rights to cultivate? And maybe you could get back to us on that.
Mm-hmm. Thank
you.
you. Thank you for raising that issue. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Jackie McGowan, and I am the Director of Lobbying for Monterey County Normal. I also am Vice President of a compliance company called Sugarleaf Professional Services. But first and foremost, I'm a patient. I'm also a patient of Harborside, and I know that you were looking for some testimony from patients of there. I'm what I call a sophisticated patient. I require THCA and CBD, which are both non-psychoactive derivatives of cannabis. And I have waited 2 years for the medicine to evolve into the state that it's in. And currently, with the bans that are being enacted all across the state, my medicine supply chain is being jeopardized. For the last 2 years, every time I find a medicine that works for me, come September and October, that medicine runs out of stock. I get put on a waiting list, and I revert back into my symptoms of my disorder. This is the type of medicine that many children in Oakland and the Bay Area are taking, and I want you to consider the fact that if you disrupt the supply chain with the way that it is currently in the state, there will be severe consequences, and children will suffer. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Madam Chair and members, Rand Martin on behalf of the Consortium Management Group. CMG operates Calivo, which provides dispensary and other services in San Jose. We're recent to the table, but look forward to being enthusiastic participants in the process as it moves forward. I want to raise two issues very quickly. One is to echo the concerns about banking. It is ironic that as we as MRSA shoves the medical marijuana industry into the sunshine, the money behind it all remains in the shadows. We must do something about it as aggressively as possible. It's a challenging issue. We know it's not easy to fix, but we need to take time this year doing what we can to fix it this year. The second issue, which has not been raised at all, is an issue relative to extraction. It may be an issue that we are dealing with solely in San Jose, I'm not sure, but San Jose has concerns about criminal law in California that basically says it's a criminal violation to extract the properties out of marijuana. It's an issue that we need to take care of so that we can make sure that as this industry matures and we're doing more and more away from combustible marijuana, that we're not shutting ourselves off by making people criminally liable. Appreciate the time and look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you very much. My name is Tomer Graciani, and I'm an edible maker from Los Angeles. I'd like to talk a little bit about overregulation, which some people touched about here today. I think it's a very important market. Also, we're talking about medicinal cannabis here, but a lot of the rules and regulations that come out here will carry to the recreational market, which is coming our way one way or another. We can see some bad regulation coming out of different states. For example, Colorado, which recently enacted a rule that says all edibles must be labeled on them. Things like limits that are put on the amount of cannabis that you can purchase at any point. Just the fact that they are so contrast to other industries, for example, alcohol or tobacco or even guns, where the situation where you can go to a liquor store, for example, and buy 3 times the amount of alcohol that would kill you. And not only would no one raise an eyebrow, you're going to get a cheer of, looks like someone's going to have a good time. Whereas when we apply the same logic to cannabis, that person is going to go to jail rather than, go to a nice party. I really think that those, things that we need to really take a look at, because the message that we're telling with these regulations is that cannabis is a lot more dangerous than some of these other substances that have clearly been linked to a lot more deaths than cannabis does.
Okay.
It just keeps the reefer madness stigma in my mind, and I really think that it would take a long time to change those rules once they're in the books, rather than doing proper research ahead of time and making sure that they're appropriate and have an actual reason and studies behind them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello. Thank you very much for your good work. My name is Greg Anton, A-N-T-O-N. On a personal note, I'm an attorney. My wife is a doctor. We have 5 adult children. We care very much about this matter. I'd just like to make a comment about federal law. I understand that this is a state government. I believe that California is the most powerful government in this country, second to the federal government. There's a law in place, a federal law in place currently that forbids prosecution in medical marijuana states. It forbids the prevention of the implementation of medical marijuana laws by the Department of Justice. I brought a case in federal court to enforce that law in October 2014 and got a ruling from Judge Breyer that the federal government cannot proceed with those prosecutions. The federal government is proceeding with prosecutions, contrary to what Eric Holder or Loretta Lynch or Obama say in the news. The government is prosecuting those cases. I have just recently got information last week. The United States the government appealed my case in December. I just got news last week that the United States Congress is joining my case. I have the federal judiciary and the United States Congress, state of California, and the American people all favoring cannabis. The Obama administration is resisting it and spending a tremendous amount of resources resisting it. So I encourage the state of California to do what you can to influence the federal government, whether it's through a civil lawsuit or some other action directly with the administrative branch. I just wanted to share that information, and thank you again for your good work.
Thank you. That was interesting. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Anthony Rangel. I am the founder and operator of a collective called Nature's Remedy Collective in Livermore, California. The one thing that we wanted to address was the bans that seem to be sweeping across with the new legislation coming. The one thing we ask is for the state to reach out to the local cities and municipalities and tell them to openly engage in the conversation with us providers and really successfully provide safe access to not just people who are clearly rehabilitated or decrepit, but as we see children who at the age of 4 are suffering from brain tumors that up until now by Kaiser Permanente have been untreatable until being introduced to cannabinoids. So in order to bring safe access, we just really hope to encourage that conversation.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Lauren Frazier. I represent a collective of collectives with the intention of entering, the distribution space under the new licensing structure. So I wanted to address a little bit about that, just since that seemed to be coming up as a concern. I think I understand some of the concerns about mandating distribution because it's disruptive to the current industry, which has evolved in an under-regulated environment. But there's also the policy rationale that distribution can really support the 3 main, or some of the main policy objectives, which would be public safety, non-diversion, and tax collection if and when an excise tax is imposed. So I think I understand that we can take some of the best things from the alcohol model with a hybrid approach of recognizing what the cannabis industry has evolved to and making sure that we can provide fair access to both cultivators, manufacturers. And I think that really is a benefit of the distribution model. Our objective personally is to support, and we already do, many, many small farmers. And so I think avoiding a monopoly is something that we can definitely look to and try to address in the policy. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Sharif El Sisi. I am an operator owner in multiple license categories here in the state of California, and I have a few comments I'd like to make. Please try to work as quickly as possible to get AB 21 passed. I was the one who introduced that sunset clause language in Alameda County, and it was an uneasy compromise to say the least, and I'd like to see that move forward as quickly as possible. Next, I want to talk about the track and trace program. There is a lot of California companies that are developing cannabis technology, and I just want to make sure that by default, the contract isn't given to BioTrack or MJ Freeway, non-California companies, just because they have a considerable market share. California has also always been known for its technology, and I think that we should try to protect that part of the industry and keep it in California. Residency requirements were left out of the MMRSA, and I think this is one way that we could try to make up for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Stephen Lubell. I'm a retired Superior Court Commissioner for the state of California. I'm very excited about the state regulations, but if we take anything from here today, we're seeing pushback from local jurisdictions and we're seeing pushback from industry. So I think it's really important on the state end that we get out there and educate all sides. There's just so much fear going on, mostly because of misinformation in the time that we've had. And I think as we progress, the more we can get out there to educate both sides, I think the quicker we'll be able to implement these state regulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker.
Hi, my name is Jason Sarush. I'm a trained chef and a senior dietetics student at San Francisco State University. Over the last few years, I've been volunteering a lot with hospice care centers and been a private chef in that manner. But a lot of the patients are using cannabis at the end of their life. And as Doctor, I want to address your question, Mr. Bonta. As Dr. Smith mentioned, there's little to no research performed on humans. And although the efforts of Mr. D'Angelo and Ms. Carlisle are appreciated, they're not evidence-based. They're based off anecdotal experiences. And I think there should be funding set aside to really put into research in California, whether it comes from revenues from the dispensaries or from tax income, however it can come. There should be some type of funding going towards research and education, even in formal education. In my college, there should be a class on medical marijuana because no one can really argue the medicinal viability, but we still need to really prove it. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I appreciate all the public comment. Thank you for those of you who were here for the entire hearing. Hopefully you found it informative, and hopefully it will help us move forward in a effective and proactive manner. I want to thank our Health Committee Chair, Assemblymember Bonta, and our Agriculture Chair, Mr. Dodd, and the other members of our various committees who also took part in the hearing, and all of their staff members as well who are probably taking notes. Thank you so very much. Have a great afternoon, and we'll continue the discussion as we move forward. Thank you. With that, we'll adjourn our hearing.